most people, they're not paying attention to any of this. Maybe they open their retirement plan statement when they get it, and if it doesn't look too bad, they go, oh, okay, things must be all right. So to your point, and they also allow the crypto markets to fly because they need adoption. Do we have enough adoption yet? Maybe we do. Maybe we do. So I don't know, but that's the way they do it. They get eyes on it. What would $40,000 an ounce gold tell the public? Crisis is coming. So yeah, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, do not be blinded by numbers because the numbers don't really matter. I have here somewhere a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. Here it is. $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. I am a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. But do you know what I can buy with this? Nothing.
Isn't this like the beginning of the avalanche where you have people now repatriating gold? I watched a video yesterday of a compilation of people buying gold in China and standing in line for hours on end, and they're putting limits now on it. Is this how it starts to become undone? And is this how they start to see how that system works, that not even they know how it works? When do we approach that critical mass where there's just too much gold being demanded and the system can no longer borrow from Peter to pay Paul and that sort of thing?
That's a gazillion-dollar question. And I don't think anybody knows the exact moment. And that's why I became a prepper, because I would always rather I don't care if I'm 20 years too early, but if you are 1 second too late, you lose all of your choices. And the point that you brought up in China is actually happening in many, many places around the world. And once that gold goes out of the system, like I'm not selling this. This is mine, right? I mean, that's what we do at Zang Enterprises, so you can buy gold because we have our wholesalers. But what I was able to get when I started in this industry back in 2002 and what I can get today are very different. And it's not just the price that I have to pay, because I am clear on what the fundamental value is. So I don't care. If the value is 42,000, do I care if I even spend 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000? Because the more of this that they create, the higher that number goes. But it really is all about confidence. It's all about confidence. And what I've witnessed since 2008 is the whittling away of those layers of confidence. So in 2008, it was bank-to-bank confidence as witnessed by interbank lending, which they don't even report anymore, right? Because banks lost confidence in each other, so they stopped loaning to each other. Then in 2015, the Swiss central bank had committed, and I can go into it if you want me to, but they had committed to a certain peg to the euro. And they kept saying, that's our highest priority, our highest priority, our highest priority. And 2 days after they said that peg was their highest priority, boom, they changed their mind and it was no longer the highest priority. So central bank to central bank confidence gone. And then in June of 2022, remember we talked about forward guidance. So the central banks since 2008 would tell the banks what they were going to do, and then the banks would get into position to prosper from it. Well, they kept saying a 50 basis point increase, a 50 basis point increase, and I just about fell out of my chair when I saw this one. And then they did, bam, surprised the markets and did 75 basis points, which may not seem like much, but it was a huge big deal, because then what the markets learned is that, and then all the central banks came out and said it, that they could no longer trust what the central bank was saying. So those three key layers, and like I said, when they did that, I just about fell out of my chair. Why would you give away that very important confidence layer? So there's only one layer left. And that's public confidence in this stuff and in the system and the people that are running the system.
And that only continues if they can continue to keep the stock market stoked.
Exactly.
Because if that starts to pull back, then people get scared. And then what do they look into? While they're going to look into gold.
Right. They would see the stock market pulling back, and most people, they're not paying attention to any of this. Maybe they open their retirement plan statement when they get it, and if it doesn't look too bad, they go, oh, okay, things must be all right. So to your point, and they also allow the crypto markets to fly because they need adoption. Do we have enough adoption yet? Maybe we do. Maybe we do. So I don't know, but that's the way they do it. They get eyes on it. What would $40,000 an ounce gold tell the public? Crisis is coming. So yeah, 3,000, 4,000, 5, do not be blinded by numbers because the numbers don't really matter. I have here somewhere a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. Here it is. $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. I am a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. But do you know what I can buy with this? Nothing. So this is probably the single most important thing that I can help people understand. Do not get married to numbers. The real trend is not the stock market going up. It's the purchasing power of in this country, the dollar, in your country too. But wherever you are in the world, what's really happening is the purchasing power value of this stuff is going away. And Zimbabwe I've been following the Zimbabwean currency for, since 2006 in their first overnight revaluation. Usually that happens like 3 times globally on average, where overnight, like the prices of a tube of toothpaste might go to $50,000, which I know sounds outrageous, but this is what happens in hyperinflation.
Yeah.
So rather than changing spending, what they do is they revalue this stuff that has no intrinsic value and is used in one place against gold money, which is the primary currency metal. That's true globally. They do that revaluation. That, my friends, is when you will start to see gold actually going toward its fundamental value. Now, in Zimbabwe, this is their 6th iteration of an overnight reset. And the last one that they did, which was last April, they came out with what they call the ZIG, Zimbabwe Gold. And they vowed that they would not print more than the gold that they had to support the currency and other foreign currencies, meaning US dollars. But the population, having been so abused by them for so long, meaning the governments and the central banks, they ain't buying it. And so in October, they did an overnight revaluation of the brand new currency, 44%. Well, if it's truly backed, guess what? You can't do that. You can't do that. And this is how you know, please mark my words on this, please. The way that you know that something is actually backed is that you, the individual, have the ability to take that contract and convert it into the underlying document, just like this gold certificate contract enabled you to convert into the gold. You could pull the gold out of the system. If you didn't like what the politicians were doing, you had a tool to hold their toes to the fire. That ZIG in Zimbabwe was presumably and is presumably 40% backed by gold, but you can't pull it out. It's not backed. It's pegged to the manipulated spot price. Means nothing. And so the public did not regain their confidence and they're not adopting the currency.
What do you make of the new media attention towards revaluation of gold and the Fort Knox FUD. And is this all just kind of a controlling of the narrative of sorts? I know our mutual acquaintance, Rafi Farber, doesn't think it's quite feasible for this to happen because he thinks it's going to create basically a wealth transfer that would be very destabilizing. What are your thoughts on revaluing the gold, and why haven't they done it yet? If it's $42 an ounce, according to the government of the United States, why haven't they done it yet? And will they?
First of all, I'm super glad that you're bringing that up because every single central bank has a gold revaluation account. So they can do, every single central bank is already in a position to do that revaluation. I do think, I don't agree with everything, like I never agree, and I am just now getting political, to be honest with you. I do think that an audit of Fort Knox would be great. However, it needs to be deeper than that because they can have the physical bars there. What I'd really like to know is all of those leasing contracts, right? So even though those bars may or may not still be in Fort Knox, and I'm glad that that's going to get audited, absolutely, it needs to go deeper than that to know who really owns the gold in Fort Knox. And we don't know that. But I am like thrilled to death that these topics are actually coming up finally. Right? Because these were not topics that anybody was talking about, though there is such a long historic precedence. And even in the US, gold has been revalued 3 times, right? Or confiscated rather 3 times. It's constantly being revaluated because that's what the markets are about. Mm-hmm. But it's what the government needs to revalue it to get rid of all of that unpayable debt. So I really have a lot of respect for Rafi, and I really think a lot of him. But I do think that there is an opportunity here, and it's one that I'm working on taking advantage of because I believe that this is our best shot at actually getting sound money back in the system. And sound money is above all central banks. It's above all governments. And it protects your ability to purchase for silver the same goods and services.